Separate the lid and crossarm by pulling out on the release pin while opening the latch. Inspect along the entire length of each side of the crossarm and the rounded portion at the bottom of the crossarm for cracking. If cracks are found in either of these areas, this step of the inspection would fail and the fryer needs to be taken out of service until the lid assembly is replaced. Please note that cracks in the bottom surface of the crossarm that do not round the corners up the side are acceptable. Inspect to make sure all of the spindle components are in place: the Acme nut, idle nut, thrust ball, locking collar, and locking collar pin. Inspect the gap between the Acme nut and the idle nut. These two components should be within about 1/16 of an inch or 1.5 millimeters of each other and look like this example. If there is a larger gap between these two components, the Acme nut and idle nut would need to be repositioned. Repositioning of these components would require the locking collar pin to be driven out and the spindle removed. If any of these components are excessively worn, damaged, or missing, this step of the inspection would not pass, and the fryer would need to be taken out of service until the component is replaced. Inspect the locking collar pin. This pin should be flush with both sides of the locking collar and then staked on each side to prevent it from shifting. If this pin is damaged, missing, or missing either stake, this step of the inspection would fail and the fryer would need to be taken out of service until the pin is replaced and properly staked. Inspect the hinge pin to ensure it is not missing, damaged, or broken. Make sure that the retaining clips are securely in place on each side of the pin. If the hinge pin and hardware is damaged or missing, take the fryer out of service until the components are replaced. If the hinge spring is found broken, this step will not fail the inspection, but the spring would need to be replaced as soon as possible to hold the lid in the upright position to make sure it's easier to load and unload the fryer. Ensure the 4 bolts are installed in the hinge plate at the rear of the fry pot. Check to make sure these bolts are snug. If any bolts are found missing, the fryer would need to be taken out of service until the bolts are replaced. If the components of the lid assembly pass inspection, prior to attaching the crossarm back to the lid, it's a good time to lube the thrust ball, ball seat, top of the locking pin, spindle, and spring.